Well, for Remembrance of the Daleks, as McCoy Doctor Who adventures go, this one wasn't all that bad. There's some of the elements of the time and the production quality that they had, of course, but what are you going to do, you know? But they did make good use of what little they did have. I mean, even though it's basically a bit of block of town and a parking lot for this big battle, the ongoing civil war of the Daleks taking place. It worked out fine for what it was. And, of course, it's all a nod to the Doctor's past, which was appropriate because by then it had been going for 25 years. So makes sense that they would make a callback all the way to the first episode. So once again, at the familiar junkyard and school, and all that stuff plays into it. And so there's little bells and whistles and Easter eggs there for that sort of thing. But even more so this time around, because this involves the Doctor having more details of his mysterious past, which probably should always have remained mysterious, but it isn't anymore. yeah. But here they only tease things, you know. But it does fall into what Cartmel would eventually was pushing for, to insinuate and suggest that the Doctor was a third founder of the Time Lords, just remained unnamed, alongside Rassilon and Omega. What the idea was to tease it and insinuate it, not actually state it, I believe. And even with the further details of it, that this mysterious other dove into the reproduction looms or whatever, and the person who became the Doctor comes out of that, which kind of makes it sound in a roundabout way that this mysterious other was like the Doctor's grandpa or something. But then again, it does. There's a slip of dialogue where it sounds like that he was present when Omega and Rassilon were in their early days and all that sort of thing. So one can make up of it what they will. And it's odd because if New Who had wanted to do that, they could have. Instead, they just completely ignored the two established characters of Omega and Rassilon because, you know, laziness and stupidity. Whatever, never mind. It doesn't matter. Remembrance of the Daleks. Well, what are they trying to remember? Or wait, hey, the Doctor remembers them, so there you go. Well, of course. But as it turns out, this whole episode, or adventure rather, it was 4 episodes, was a plot by the Doctor to lure them in. But it doesn't really explain much as to why he would do this, as far as this is referring to the original Doctor, and he was the original Doctor, played by William Hartnell. Before he took off with Susan, Ian, and Barbara, he had hidden this hand of Omega. Now, what was he doing with it? You know, and it sort of teases that there was something about this, and that would allude to his motivations for leaving Gallifrey, which he's never stated. And I mean, he kind of makes joking, I was bored and all this type of thing, which I'm sure he was, but nevertheless, there was probably a far more serious reason for it. And but it's another one of those things of just leave it there. You know, really, it could have done something about it, but ultimately it doesn't really matter. But in the case of this story, the problem is that so he lures the Daleks. They know about it. They want it. The two sides are fighting over it and all this sort of stuff. And at the end of it all, it just goes back to Gallifrey. So why take it from them in the first place, you know? So yeah, all in all, it's kind of like an old callback to Unit adventures as well. Of course, this takes place before the Doctor would have met the Brigadier. They have a Brigadier-like character here. He's the group captain, and basically playing the same role. But the problem with all of that, you couldn't have had like a younger Brigadier be there and the Doctor meets him because, well, then he would remember him because the first Doctor he meets is the second Doctor. So there's this this adventure here, and they have a scientific advisor, is this woman there who's been drafted into the job. Precursor to Liz Shaw, I suppose. And but all this, there would be a report, there would be a record of it, and I guess it was just a need-to-know basis. At some point, did the Brigadier get to know, hey, there was this other version of him, and since then, he's seen other versions of him. He says, oh, well, but it doesn't exactly work out. Plus, there's a bit nebulous time frame as to when it actually takes place for Unit and all that sort of thing. Probably more having to do with Sarah Jane supposedly coming from 1980 when the show was being shot in the mid-70s and all that. Probably doesn't matter. But this, in and of itself, is a bit of a odd thing that, well, the Daleks were there. There was a mysterious stranger named the Doctor who showed up and helped out. Stuff like that. It seems like somebody would have made mention. It's that same guy. And he keeps changing. But the plus side, there's more plus to it on the episode than not, as opposed to a lot of the others. Of course, you have Ace, and, she beats up Daleks with a bat, which is always one of the things about the Daleks, and this is true of a lot of them. It's like, man, these guys have conquered most of the universe, huh? Boy, the people who lost to them have got to feel really stupid. Just some girl with a baseball bat, and a rocket launcher. That was, of course, that thing. But, there's a couple of back and forth things where he says, you're not packing any explosives, are you? And she says, no. Of course, she was lying. He knew it, and they made use of it. But it's kind of like, it's a replay of how they handled with the Doctor and Leela. I preferred Leela, but, instead of poison darts, Ace uses explosives and a bat. So anyway, there's a guy that she flirts with, but he's bad. But he feels bad about being bad, but still bad, even though he was manipulated by some old fascist who thought now's his chance to make good with whatever Daleks he's allied with. Of course, it doesn't work. But they're manipulating this creepy little girl who's just prancing around and then seems to be the one in charge, and they're leading you to believe that she's being controlled by Davros, but no, she's being controlled by the Daleks that are against Davros. And now Davros is calling himself the Emperor of the Daleks, I guess. A lot of stuff has gone on in between episodes, But and then but he escaped at the last minute. Yeah, so he's still alive, despite the Hand of Omega destroying Skaro, which is interesting because it shows up later in New Who and stuff. But hey, well, no, this would have been back in 1963. So, yeah, Well, since then there's been a time war and stuff, so maybe that retconned everything. Anyway. That's about it. And the creepy little girl had Sith powers. She could shoot lightning out of her hands, and she killed Ace's would-be boyfriend. But she didn't like him because, turned out he was a lying spy and all that, even though he felt bad about it. Aww. But shouldn't have wasted his time because, in current era, I think they retroactively made Ace a lesbian, so... Well, That's always the way, because Tumblr decided, so, that's the way it is. Everybody is. So, the poor bastard wasted his time for nothing. But he got electrocuted, which is odd because, it seems like the girl could have used that earlier. Some fixes they got into. But, yeah. So, anyway, as McCoy episodes go, which I'm not a big fan of, this one was sort of okay. Not that bad. Boy, I tell you, that shuttle from the mothership, and it might have been hard times for those particular crop of Daleks that they just had to make a shuttle out of spare cargo crates, But in that case, it's kind of like pretty impressive on their ingenuity, But I'm still not seeing how they could all fit it. But whatever. So, yeah, there you go. Remembrance of the Daleks. Perhaps you remember Remembrance of the Daleks. But again, at 7th Doctor's episodes go, it wasn't that bad.